Well, hello. Hey, listen, a friend recently asked me about what led me to being an operations manager, which is what I do for the Army today. So I want to just kind of give you a rundown on exactly how I got to where I'm at. Now, I joined the Marine Corps 8 days after I turned 18. And I joined the Corps because I wanted to be part of something bigger, but I also needed a challenge as a young man because I was raised, kind of rough and tumble. So I always looked for that challenge, and boy, the Marine Corps did not disappoint. The first thing that the Corps taught me was that you can always get just a little bit more out of resources, your organization, and even yourself. Now, the second thing it taught me was leaders eat last. In other words, if you're a leader out there, you should always put the team first, because if you put the team first, the team puts the mission first. Now, the third thing the Corps taught me is that healthy competition is a good thing. We live in a world where we hand out participation trophies. Be competitive, but most importantly, be competitive with yourself, because when you compete with your previous best, you're always inching the ball forward. You're always getting just a little bit better, and that's what it's about. The fourth important point that the Corps taught me was that looking out for yourself will build a bank account, but looking out for others will build a reputation and eventually a legacy. Now, all of those lessons that the Corps taught me, I used in moving into my first big position after the Marine Corps, and that was working for the U.S. Navy as a federal employee. Specifically, I was a quality assurance specialist. Now, it was in this position here that I was able to use my love of process improvement to work with a housing company that we had partnered with there at Pearl Harbor to increase their maintenance outcomes. And within a 12-month period of working with these maintenance teams, we tweaked a few of the processes, and we were actually able to bring their vacancy rate down by about 96%, from 250 vacant homes all the way down to 10, just with a couple of minor tweaks. But again, that goes back to what the Corps taught me. If you can always get a little bit more out of a process, a resource, an organization, or even yourself. Now, I also learned a lot about asset management working for the Navy, and that's a big part of what operations managers do is asset management, making what you have last just a little bit longer so that you can continue to get that profit off of it. Now, I took everything that I learned from the Navy and I brought it to work up here at Fort Wainwright for the Army. Now, my official title is Supervisory Housing Manager. What I actually am is an operations manager, and you could also say I'm a facilities manager, is an element of that. But what I do up here is I manage 28 bachelor housing facilities that comprise about 3,000 bed spaces. That means that I handle, the project management piece of it. I participate in a lot of renovation projects and new construction projects. I also run the operating budget for my branch. I also run a $1.5 million maintenance contract, and I run a 60,000 square foot warehouse. So that's a lot, but that's what an operations manager does. At the very core of it, an operations manager just makes stuff happen. But to be a good operations manager, you need to understand budgets. You need to understand asset management. It wouldn't hurt if you understood a little bit about supply chain management and sometimes even maintenance management, depending on where you're at. So thankfully, I've gotten all of those things from first the Marine Corps, then the Navy, and finally the Army. I found a couple of key traits to being a good operations manager, and I just want to share those with you in closing. First of all, an operations manager has to have outstanding initiative. You have to be able to forecast a problem before it's actually a problem. Now, the second trait a good operations manager needs is a drive for continuing improvement. Now, the best way to do this is to be a data miner. In other words, everything that you do as an operations manager has numbers attached to it, whether those numbers are dollars and cents or whether those are analytics from some process you're in. Capture those and always monitor those, and you're always looking to make tiny tweaks to improve that process, because at the end of the day, the goal is to maximize outcomes for the amount of investment that your company's put in something. And you do that through efficiency. Now, the third thing a good operations manager needs is the ability to connect with team members and understand their why. What a leader in an organization has to understand is why their team members do what they do, what drives them. When you understand what's important to your team members, you can show them a direct correlation between what drives them and how they fit in the organization. And the last thing that a good operations manager needs is an eye for details. You need to pay attention to the little things because, yes, the little things matter. So, hey, I hope this helps you out a little bit. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you around the bend.